What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Powerhouse Mentality Podcast. I am your host. I am Caitlin Kenneth Smith. In today's podcast, I had an absolutely incredible conversation with my client, Christina, all about how she completely turned her life around, lost 50 pounds over the last 2 years, kept off 50 pounds, improved her performance in CrossFit, but more importantly, how she did all of this as a mother of 3 boys. She broke down 5 of her best tips on how she did that and how you can do it too if you're a parent. Look, your kids shouldn't be the excuse as to why you don't have enough time to prioritize your health. They should be the reason why you prioritize your health. This episode is absolutely loaded, so please share this episode with at least one person. Share it on your social medias. Let's spread this message and enjoy the conversation. All right, so I have my client, Christina, here, and Christina, we've been working together for a little bit over a year through Hidden Summit, but I know that your fitness journey goes a lot further back than that. So today, the main focus, the conversation is we're going to talk about how you were able to do this while being a mother, while being a wife, while having a full-time job, and break down 5 different tips that you have for other parents out there who are looking to do the same. But how did your fitness journey start? Because I know you weren't always like fit and athletic.
No, I was the opposite of fit and athletic. I was that person who would walk the mile in high school because there was no way I was going to run. Like you just couldn't make me do it.
I was actually sick on mile day every year.
I was just defiant.
I like that better.
I never did sports. I was never athletic. I always had a really big fear of failure. So it stopped me from doing a lot of things. And I was always either just a little bit chubby or I was full on overweight or obese. So none of it was easy or fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I had 2 kids and I would try on and off to work out. It would stick for a little while. I'd lose a few pounds. It'd feel great. Life would get in the way. Weight would come back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had my 3rd kid when I was 30. So almost 6 years ago. And I was a stay-at-home mom at that point. I had always been a working person. I would work, I would come home to my kids. It was my whole routine. But I was a stay-at-home mom. And for a lot of stay-at-home moms out there, you feel very alienated and isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to fall into depression, which is something that I do struggle with anyway. So I had my 3rd kid and there was a local CrossFit gym that was doing a baby and me, mommy and me class. And I was like, well, I'm going to try this. I'll at least meet some other moms and it'll get me out of my house for an hour. And I did that for a few months and the class just wasn't gaining momentum like the gym owner wanted it to. Mm-hmm. And she's like, hey, I want you to come to my regular CrossFit classes. And I was like, oh, no. Like, I don't do barbells. I don't do cardio. I don't know. Like, no,
I don't want to actually CrossFit. I just want to be here.
Wait, I just want
actually, how did you come across,
to be okay?
Yeah. How did you come across the CrossFit gym? Like, so I had just randomly come up to you.
Well, so I had worked with the gym owner several years back. And so, I had like followed their page and they had posted about a mommy and me class. And I was like, maybe I can meet other moms.
Yeah. The importance of posting on social media if you're a business owner or a coach, because you never know who's going to see it and literally change their life from it, because that's exactly what you did.
Absolutely. And, so because the class kind of fell through, I decided, okay, well, I guess I can give this a shot. And so even though that CrossFit introduction wasn't like the most ideal, it was a great gym, but it was just not the right fit for me. Mm-hmm. But it kind of introduced me to the fact that like, wow, I can actually get strong. And my mental health just felt better. My body felt better. And yes, I was losing weight, but it was more the fact that I just started overall feeling better.
Yeah. I think that's something that people don't talk about enough is like they usually get into a health or fitness journey because they're like, I want to look a particular way. When in all reality, the way that you look and the weight that you lose and the muscle that you gain, that's kind of like the side effect. And the main effect is how much better you feel, both physically, but also mentally and emotionally. You feel more confident.
Oh, absolutely. And like there is no denying the fact that the reason that I started was because I did not like my body. You know,
Mhm.
as being a mom of three, like my body has gone through so many changes. Um, And so I actually stopped going to that gym for a while, but I was still working out at home, which anybody who works out at home, you know that it's just not the same if you've worked out in a like a CrossFit environment or a gym environment or a group fitness environment. You just don't push yourself as much.
Especially when you have three kids probably constantly bothering you while you're trying to
Yes.
work out.
Yes, which became a huge thing. Like I would be like, all right, guys, I'm taking an hour to myself. I'm going to go in a garage. I'm going to go work out. And they're like, okay, we'll be up here. Great. Um, and then without fail, within the first 10 minutes, I had one kid come in and
Mhm.
they're like, whether they're sitting there kind of like trying to lift weights with me or they're just sitting there watching me. And then I get a second and a third kid. And then I'm trying to lift weights with three kids in a small garage. And there was no true focus
Not a lot of
with
Olympic
my
lifting going
workouts.
on at that point.
Right. It'd be like, all right, you guys need to stand on the other side of the wall so that I can lift, do my deadlift or my back squat or whatever.
Mhm.
And then it became, well, I want to go on the pull up bar. I want to do this. So then it's just me playing with my kids, which is not inherently bad, but was
Because then
not my
again, they
intention.
see you and they see what you're doing and you lead by example, which is such an important thing. If like your kids don't see you doing uncomfortable shit, then they're probably not going to do uncomfortable shit. And then
Yeah.
that's going to limit to where they go in life. So leading by example is a huge thing.
Yeah. So what really spurred me going back into a gym was that COVID had hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I was a stay at home mom, I was also a stay at home mom that had to become a stay at home teacher.
Mm.
Um, and my husband went to work, but I was home every day, all day long with my kids, no escape because I couldn't even go to the grocery store unless it was absolutely necessary. Um, and so my mental health really suffered for that. I had a lot of depressions. I drank a lot of alcohol and I gained a lot of weight,
Mm-hmm.
which I think a lot of people dealt with during COVID or anything that happens like that. Um, and it was just one day I was just really sick of feeling like shit all the time. And so I had talked to my husband and I was like, listen, I really need to go back to the gym. And he's like, yeah, well, I was like, he's like, you work out at home. Yeah, I know I work out at home, but I'm not getting what I need
Yeah.
at home. And so it became one of those really big things where it was like, my mental health is suffering. Things are going to get worse, like for my kids, for my marriage, for me, if I don't do something about it. And um, the CrossFit gym that I had originally gone to had closed down, but luckily I knew the owner of the other CrossFit gym I have in my very small community.
So,
The joys of small towns.
yeah, Christina lives in Alaska.
Yes, I do.
So also that's
It's a
another thing
tiny
that people
town.
would use as an excuse is like, oh my God, it's so fucking cold outside. I can't go and work out. Yeah, you can.
It's real fucking cold, guys. We
Yeah.
had like -20 for the past week.
Yeah. You sent me a video of frozen first form energy drinks that you received to your door.
Yes, yes, my energy popsicles.
Yeah, literally. So energy popsicles, that could be a new thing. Maybe they could
That
trademark
is
it.
a
Like,
new
it'd be
thing, guys.
yeah. So you
Uh,
went back to the gym and then what happened from there?
um, it was so I also, along with depression, I have a lot of anxiety,
Yeah.
particularly those things love to go hand in hand,
Mm-hmm.
particularly around anything in a group setting where I feel like I'm going to fail. Like I had said earlier, I had a
So
huge
CrossFit.
fear of failure. Um, and most of the work that I had done at home with Olympic lifting and things like that, as most people know, they're very technical. If you don't have somebody giving you feedback, you're probably doing them wrong,
Yeah.
generally speaking, which I was. Um, so I went back to the gym and I did my intro class for CrossFit just to make sure that I was good with all the foundational work and things like that. And from there, I built a community of people. Like, I was very accepted and everyone was pushing me, no matter how much I had to scale. I could not jog 100 meters without my lungs wanting to burst, without my legs feeling like they were going to give out. And I was like, this is how I go. I'm going to die. 100-meter run and I'm going to die. But luckily I have a wonderful gym owner and a lot of really fantastic people at the gym that would be like, hey, can't wait to see you tomorrow. And then if I wasn't there for a couple of days, my gym owner would be like, hey, you're coming back, right? And I was like, yeah. And so after a couple of months, it just became a routine where it was like, I miss those people, or like I saw strength gains and I was feeling great about it. And my mental health was making all sorts of strides, and like I wasn't hitting the deep depressions that I would. And the anxiety wasn't there as much, and my body just felt better.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge testament to the CrossFit community. And this is the second time that I have somebody on the podcast talking about how literally the CrossFit community pulled them out of a really deep state of depression, anxiety, and showed them that like, hey, like, even though you can't do a lot of the things that maybe like the top athletes can do, that doesn't matter. Like, it's what you can do, and you're just going to focus on getting better. And you're going to have all of these incredible people around you who are also trying to get better, and you're doing it together. That's like, there's something incredible about the CrossFit community. So if you're somebody who doesn't know where they want to go for the new year for a gym, honestly, invest in a CrossFit gym, because like the bodybuilding gyms, like the commercial gyms, yes, you're going to get a lot of equipment, but you're not going to get the same camaraderie that you would get that most people need and are lacking today.
Oh, absolutely. And that was, I tell so many new members when they're like, oh my God, they come in and they see a workout that we're doing,
Yeah.
but you also get to see the gamut of people that are there. Yes, there's people there doing ring muscle ups, and making it look flawless and like it's easy. And then you've got other people that are over there killing it doing ring rows, and I tell them like, hey, when I first started, I could not hang on a rope. Like I could not physically get my feet off the floor while hanging on a rope. And now I'm doing full rope climbs.
Yeah.
So given that it's been a lot of work.
Yeah. That's what people don't talk about either. It's not going to like, you're not going to start and you're not going to be amazing at it. You're probably not going to be able to do a lot of the things that you want to do, and you're going to suck at them. But as long as you're willing to suck at these things and get better, like now you're doing a competition in a couple of weeks where you're in an intermediate division where you're going to be doing handstand walks, toes to bar, pull-ups, things that you couldn't do when you first started or couldn't even believe that you were probably doing now.
Oh, absolutely not. Like there is no way that I could have anticipated like the weight that I could lift now, or even just doing a clean or a snatch.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you started really getting into the CrossFit. And then as far as nutrition, like how did that come into play with it all?
So I've always had a not great relationship with food. Mm-hmm. I was either an emotional eater where, I would gorge myself, or my biggest one is that, as I think most women in particular have done, was try to eat as little as possible,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, as little as possible. And there were days that it was like my husband would be tracking macros and he'd be like, oh man, I still have 300 calories to eat today or something. I'm like, I wonder how much I have eaten today. And it's like, oh, you've eaten 700 calories. You're an adult woman and you've eaten nothing. Cool. You've sustained on caffeine. Mm-hmm. And so when I first started at my first CrossFit gym, she was running a little bit of a nutrition program. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to eat. I need somebody to tell me exactly what to eat. I need you to tell me when to eat. And she was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And I was like, but I need that. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. She's like, but I will give you the tools that you can use so that you can learn how to eat efficiently and effectively for your body. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds difficult.
But it's not. And you know what? She put you in such a good position, because the amount of people who have been like, oh, well, my last coach gave me a meal plan, and then they don't know how to eat, or they don't know how to be flexible and still like, if, hey, I can't have my meal plan, then fuck it, I'll just eat cookies,
Right. And it took me about a month or two to where I felt more comfortable, kind of starting to create my own meals. But what she did was she gave me lists of like the best lean proteins, really good carbs that I could eat, and fats. And so she was like, look, you're not going to track your macros. All you're going to do is write down what you eat.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to write down everything that you eat, and use this list, pick one from each category for your meals and go from there. And so I did that for a while. And in that first couple of months, I think I lost 2 pounds, but I lost 13 inches, which means that I was lifting,
Yep.
I was gaining muscle, and I was losing body fat. And of course, that kind of, went up and down for a while, and I struggled with it, especially through COVID. And then when I went back to my second CrossFit gym, which is now my home CrossFit gym, I was like, all right, I know now, as I was starting to get more used to the movements and understanding like how my body was operating in the gym. And I was like, I still feel like shit all the time. Like I'm working out. Why am I not feeling better? And I was like, oh, I need to go back to looking at my food.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
It is a big thing. And so I found the First Form app and I was like, all right, I will track my macros on here. And again, I got back into that mindset of like, I need somebody to send me what to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily they don't do that. Again, they set you up for success. And I was like, okay, I'm going to, I went all gung ho about it. I was like, I'm going to meal prep every one of my meals. I'm going to, go to the store and I'm going to buy all the healthy things, and I'm going to,
Yep.
because it's either all or nothing, right?
Oh yeah. 0 to 100 baby real fast.
Oh yeah. And you make it a week and then you're like, this isn't sustainable.
I'm tired.
I'm tired. And I'm like, I've got 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a family. So I needed a way that I was going to be more successful in my nutrition.
Yeah.
And so I pick one day a week that I go grocery shopping on the same day every single week. For me, now that's Fridays. And then I was like, as a mom, I don't think anybody talks about when you're an adult. One of the worst things is trying to just decide what you want for dinner every night.
Yeah.
And you have to do that for forever. And I feel like that's bullshit.
Yeah. So with this transition, right, let's get into those 5 things. And the first thing that you put down and that you sent me was those whiteboards for dinner. You're not eating whiteboards for dinner. You're putting up a whiteboard. Now explain what that whiteboard dinner means, because this is something that I've actually helped a lot of my other clients who are also parents because of you. I've been like, hey, I have this client who does these whiteboard things and it's really fucking phenomenal for her. So what exactly is it and how can people use it?
So I'm such a huge advocate of like having your notebooks. I love to write things down. I love lists. But I also have a kid who he would ask me every single night, what's for dinner tonight? And I'd be like, I pulled out chicken. And they'd be like, well, what's for dinner tomorrow night? And I'm like, dude, you're asking a lot.
Yeah. One at a time.
So it started off by trying to ease my very anxious child's mind. And I was like, well, shit, I'm just going to get a basic ass whiteboard and I'm going to write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, get the whole week listed out. And I will at least start by just putting the main protein that we're going to be having, And so I started doing that. And then that made it easier for me to be like, okay, I need this much chicken for the week or this much steak or this much ground beef. And then my boys wanted to have input on it too. So we picked Friday, since that's the day I go grocery shopping, that's their kids' choice day. So they get to eat pretty much whatever they want, because that's also the day I go grocery shopping, and ain't nobody want to cook when you grocery shop.
Yeah, no, that's why you go to get food after you spend hundreds of dollars on food.
Absolutely. Everyone orders a pizza right after grocery shopping. Mm-hmm. Well, so then they started giving me ideas. And so on my whiteboard, I have my week listed out, and I have each day listed of what I'm going to have for dinner. On the bottom, anybody who has ideas gets to write down all their ideas for what they want for dinners, and we can pick and choose from there. And then since I have a freezer in my garage, I have a little list of all the proteins and things that are in my downstairs freezer. That way I don't have to keep running up and down the stairs for it. And so I we pick a day, and it's usually just when we're all home, Sundays or whatever. And we write out what we want, ideas for the week. And then I can make my grocery list off of that. And then I go grocery shopping. And that way I'm not aimlessly trying to figure out what I'm going to make. I can look at it each morning and be like, oh, I need to pull out chicken thighs because we're doing, fajitas.
Yeah.
So,
and that kind of goes into the second one, which is including your kids in discussions around health and wellness, and emphasizing mental health too is another big thing you said, but getting them involved with all of that meal planning, but also beyond that.
Absolutely. I think growing up, a lot of people around my generation is, we either didn't really discuss, mental health issues in depth, or we talked about, when we were talking about our health and our wellness, a lot of moms worked out as a punishment for their body because they hated it, or they didn't work out, or they didn't know how to make a balanced meal. And so I don't think there was a lot of really good information that was given to my generation. And my parents never made me feel bad about my weight, but I always felt terrible about being heavier. But I was also never given the tools that I needed. And so I didn't want that for my kids. And so I know a lot of people talk about, well, if you have daughters, don't say negative things about your body in front of them, because then they'll say that about themselves. Well, the same thing goes for your sons. I only have boys. So I talk to my kids a lot about why we eat the things we do, why we fuel our bodies properly. We talk about macronutrients and the importance of protein, and no foods are off limits. We don't, it's not like, oh, we don't eat that because it's bad. It's like, oh, we just don't eat as much of that because it doesn't fuel our bodies for what we need. And then giving them that knowledge, then I'll be like, all right, well, what do you want for dinner? And yes, my kids love to be like chili dogs or, pizza. But there's a lot of times that they're like, ooh, let's make, chili. They love when I make homemade chili. Or let's make pork chops with, I want potatoes tonight, or I want green beans, or I want this.
Yeah.
So it helps give them a choice. And that way, when they're older, they don't have to be as confused about okay, well, I don't know how to make a healthy meal.
Exactly.
And then if they want to help cook, that also helps them want to eat it more.
Yes. Plus it helps you.
It does.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Depending. So then the third one is meal prepping and adjusting what meal prep looks like.
Yes.
So obviously making time to meal prep, everybody knows, is a very important thing, but I like the second part that you put on that is adjusting what it looks like. So what did you mean by that?
So I think a lot of us have you see, pictures or videos on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and people have all of their meals planned out and have created all their meals for the entire week. For most people that aren't solely focused on fitness as their job and career in life, we don't have time for that.
Yep.
And it becomes very overwhelming. And a lot of times, quite frankly, I just get sick of eating the same thing every single day. So I had to adjust what I thought meal prepping looked like. So the biggest meals that I would struggle with was breakfast. So I would start making either breakfast burritos or breakfast sandwiches, and making those in bulk. And then I was getting really tired of making an individual egg for each sandwich. So I figured out that you can scramble a bunch of eggs, put them on a cookie sheet and bake them, and then cut them to fit on your sandwiches. And I was like, wow, that saved me 30, 45 minutes to an hour. A lot of times I'll just double my dinners so that I have a secondary lunch for the next day. And since my husband also works, and we eat a lot of protein in my house, we batch cook proteins. We just make a shit ton of, whether it's chicken thighs or flank steak or ahi tuna, whatever. And then we reuse that for a couple of meals. That way it's more versatile. So then all you have to do is you cook up a side and some veggies and you're good.
Yeah.
And then there were some times that it was where Meal prepping simply looked like I bought a shit ton of vegetables and I pre-chopped them and put them in baggies, because sometimes I'm a child, and if I have to cut that carrot up right before I eat it, I'm not going to eat it.
Yeah,
But
a
if
lot
it's
of
already
people
cut
do
up, I'll eat it.
that. Mhm. Yep, a lot of people do that, and that's why a lot of people fail, is because they don't have things planned out or prepped the way that it needs to be for them, and they base off what meal prep looks like based off what some fitness influencer posted on social media, which is not realistic for most people because we're not fucking robots. Like, oh yeah, that meal looks great, but like it has 15,000 different things that I need to do to actually make it. So I'm not going to do that. I might as well just do what I'm already doing because that's, easy.
Right. And it just makes more sense that it's like, okay, well, I really liked what I had for dinner. Okay, if I just make a little bit more of it, I have it for lunch the next day. And then you're not burning yourself out on eating chicken and broccoli and rice every single day for lunch. Now, if that works for you, cool. That's a great option, but like I get bored.
And most people do. Most
Yeah.
people do.
So just looking at that, you don't have to meal prep an entire week at a time. You can meal prep one meal for the entire week that you struggle with.
Yeah.
Or you can just meal prep, like just chopping your vegetables and shit. That's a huge one.
Yeah. And that goes actually right into number 4, which is starting small, right? Like just start with one thing. So when it came to like meal prepping and stuff, did you just start with one thing, or like did you start small and it kind of built off that?
With all of it, I started small. I have a ton of people because I've lost just about 50 pounds in 2 years and have kept it off.
And that's important.
Yes, it has not been fast, but it has been sustainable. And people are like, oh, well, how did you start? What workout plan did you do? What meal planning did you do? And I was like, honestly, I picked one day and I promised myself that I would work out one day a week for 30 minutes. And when I could do that consistently, I added in a second day. And when I did that consistently, then I looked at nutrition and I started with, okay, I'm going to focus on just getting protein in at every meal.
Yep.
I'm going to focus on, after I did that, I was looking at, okay, well, I need more vegetables. So I'm going to do protein and a vegetable with every meal. And then I even started looking at just the way I would eat. Like I would eat my protein first. Most people make a protein, a vegetable, and a carb. I would eat my protein first and my vegetables. And then if I was full, then I wouldn't eat as much of the carb that was left over.
That's a hack. That's a hack. I tell that to a lot of my clients. It's like, hey, you can have whatever you want, but like if you're going to have a cookie, you're going to have a protein source with the cookie. You're going to eat that protein source first. By the time you get to that cookie, you're less likely to overeat it, or you're less likely to eat it at all, because protein is so satiating, plus the vegetable too.
Yeah. And you get high volume food with vegetables, because everybody knows that if you make a huge ass salad, you are so much more full from eating all that. You will get a little hungrier earlier, but man, you are full.
Yeah. Versus like, let me just eat this little like 1/4 cup of rice. That's like not very filling. Yes, it'll maybe keep you fuller than the vegetables longer term, but like right off the bat, you're like struggling to finish that salad. And it's like, wow, I'd rather have that problem than the complete opposite problem.
Absolutely. And it was just every bit of it. I started small because I had done time and time again where it's like, I'm going to do all the things at once. And then a week, maybe a week and a half, if I was doing really well, it would peter out and it was not sustainable.
Yeah. Sustainability is the number one thing. And that goes into number 5, which is making the time and prioritizing it. And making, you put in all caps. Why'd you put making in all caps?
Because as a mom, we feel guilt. I struggle, and there's still days that I struggle with guilt, because your kids are like, oh, just stay home with us, or if you're a primary parent, a lot of times, when you're the primary caregiver, if you go to leave, your kid cries. They're a certain age, and it makes you feel awful. And it makes you feel bad for your spouse, and it makes you feel bad for your kid. And then you're like, oh, well, do I really need to go and take this time for myself? And the fact of the matter is that you do.
Yeah.
Because I was worse off being at home, not having that hour for myself, than it was if I would just go to the gym, get a workout in, and come home. I was able to deal with the normal stress of life better. I was able to deal with my kids better. I was happier and healthier with my kids and my spouse. And then it became more of during the summers, which is the main time that we're outside, because I don't want to be outside in the cold.
The sun doesn't fucking set in the summer either, basically.
No, it never sets in the summer.
Beautiful.
So that was the opportunity that, like, we would go on bike rides together. We would go to the park and I would climb on the equipment with my kids, and I would play and jump and run, and I would race my, almost 14-year-old, or I'd wrestle around with them, where I wouldn't have been able to do that before because I wouldn't want to go outside. If we went to the beach, there was no way in hell I was going to put on a bathing suit. Like, I didn't want none of it.
Yeah.
But taking an hour a day, or even a half an hour a day, if that's where you're at, 15 minutes, taking that time just for you was going to do so much more for me and my kids and my family than if I were to just ignore it, because then we get resentful and we get angry, and it's just not good for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Shoot. Well, I'm gonna be honest, this podcast was packed full of so many good things, like not just you telling your story, because I'm sure so many people can relate to all different aspects of it, and they can start to see, well, oh shit, like if she did that, then why can't I? And also you gave them the tools that they need to be able to be successful as a parent and still prioritize themselves and be a great example and role model for their kids too. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your call that we had today to help other people and share value through your story. And I know you're going to continue to do that as you now start to coach CrossFit. So that's going to be exciting for you too.
Yes.
But guys, go out and do one thing that's going to take you one step closer to where you want to be.